We are honored to showcase a passionate educator who has over 15 years experience in the field of English language teaching and assessment. She has had a diverse career in assessment, from head of English for a bilingual school to associate professor for a postgraduate diploma in educational assessment at the Uruguayan Education Council. She is convinced education is the way to make a better world for everyone. She is Veronica Floretta, representing Uruguay. Hello, Veronica.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I don't know if you're... Give me just one sec. If you're listening to me properly now.
Yes, we can listen to you, Veronica. Thank you so much. And we are excited for your session. The stage is yours.
It's a pleasure to be here sharing this time with you. Thank you, Education Influence, and everyone organizing this event, because it has been wonderful. All the sessions, all the organization, everything. So thank you very much for letting me be part of this. So I'm going to start sharing screen to start with my presentation. There we go. Right, so the title of my presentation is Fostering Learning Through Assessment. Okay, but first, I'm going to show you some things and tell you some interesting things about Uruguay and myself. We are 8 hours behind from India at this time, so it's 6 a.m. in the morning, which is quite early. We have barely started the day. It's about spring here. We are a very, very small country in South America. We are Spanish speakers. Our life expectancy is 77. We are kind of an old country, they say, because of demographics. There are not so many children as there used to be here, but I think that's a kind of a global trend nowadays. We are mainly based in tourism. As you can see in the pictures, that's a picture of Montevideo. That's the capital city of Uruguay, and we have a wonderful promenade. So we are very tourist based, and also we have a lot of field with cattle, so it's kind of an agricultural export-oriented country. Okay, then there's a picture of our flag, okay, which is a combination of blue and the sun and white. Then there's a very famous infusion we take here. It's called mate. Okay, it's a herbal infusion you drink. It's quite bitter, and you should drink it very, very hot. And it's the typical thing, you go around for a walk with friends and you carry your mate. That habit was a bit interrupted by COVID the last years, because we couldn't share. That drink is thought to be shared in a round of friends, for example. And then the other picture I was showing you is about football, because we are very, very passionate about football. So there are 2 football players there who are quite famous. I hope you know about them. Federico Valverde and Luis Suarez. They are part from our national team, and they usually play in Europe. Okay, but we are kind of, everything stops here when there's a World Cup and the national team is playing. So everybody would stop working, schools would project the match in a shared area so that everyone can see it together, and we use it as an excuse to be together and share some moments. So those are interesting facts about Uruguay I wanted you to know. As we are such an international community, I thought it might be interesting to let you know some things about me. As Anusha was saying, I am an English teacher by background. I am an assessment specialist, and I'm currently in teacher training. So I suppose some of my students are in this session looking, trying to grab as much as they can from Education Influence. And so we're going to start with our session, and I'd love you to participate in the chat because there are many activities in which I'm going to ask you some questions to make it a little bit more interactive. So my first question for you, maybe you know some of these people, maybe you don't, but what do these people have in common? So I would love you to share in the chat what your thoughts are about these people or what they have in common. Just a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds so that we can share sports. Very good. Very successful sports people. Exactly. Success, sports personality, performance. They are famous. Absolutely. Those were some of the ideas I was expecting you to write about. Okay. They are very, very high performance sports people. Okay. Elite sport people. So another question here. I would like you to imagine, just for a minute, that you want to be an elite athlete and there are no major drawbacks or major problems in achieving that. Okay, so what would you need to start doing right now? How would you measure your progress? What would you do? I want to become a tennis player like Mr. Federer. What should I do? From my routine, from my physical shape at this moment, from my habits, what should I do? Someone's writing there in the chat, discipline, practice, effort, learning what they do, the technical part of the sport, absolutely. I would need to learn to focus more. Which other ideas might come up? Resilience, determination, the attitude of a winner. Absolutely. Those are very, very important things. Practice, consistent practice. Absolutely. Now, I have here made a kind of a list of the things that would contribute to that goal we have set to become elite athletes. And based on my habits, I would need to drink more water and to plan adequate training, eat healthily, at least healthier than I am now. I would need to start going to the gym regularly and change some of my habits, right? And then there are certain things I might be tempted to do, which are not going to be so beneficial for me, like trying to train like them from the very beginning. I would probably get hurt or won't be able to fulfill that goal. If I compare myself with them all the time, that wouldn't be something positive either to my experience. Buying professional equipment, that wouldn't make me an elite athlete. It would help if I have some discipline, some focus, some training, as you were mentioning before. And another thing that I cannot do is keeping my current routine, right? So I suppose we all share these ideas and we all agreed that there are certain changes that we need to make in order to achieve that goal. But would it be okay if we all the people in this session, if we all follow the same working plan? Would it be okay to expect everyone to achieve that level, to get to be a high performance athlete in, I don't know, in a year? Or shall we need different trainings according to the conditions in which we are, to our habits, to our context, to the possibilities, the resources we have handy? Someone saying no. So it wouldn't be the same work plan for everyone. Another no, there are 3 no's. We are all different individuals with different capabilities and resources. Absolutely. Exactly. Okay. The problem is sometimes when we turn into education, that unanimous no about training and expectations is not that clear. Okay. We're not that crystal clear about this kind of stuff when we talk about education, and for a justified reasons, you know. For instance, we might think about the resources we have, which are sometimes limited, the number of students we have per class. Our beliefs and our training as teachers have determined us to think in a very particular way about education. We have a syllabus to cover. We need to justify the purchase of a book, so we have to use it from beginning to end. Okay, so there are many, many factors affecting us, our interpretation of education, that doesn't let us think about this, which is so clear about sports, like happening also inside our classroom. So if we think about all the diversity we have in our classrooms, we might feel a bit overwhelmed, and the lack of resources we have, and we might end up thinking at the very beginning, as a first impression at first, as something chaotic, okay? As this image of the classroom I'm showing you, in which children are doing kind of very different things, okay? And if we let our education guide us, we would think that this is not the typical image of an orderly classroom in which learning is happening, right? It might be a bit intimidating to think about a class in which everyone is doing something different at a different time, right? But as I like to think about it, as in an orchestra, if there aren't different instruments playing at different times, we wouldn't be able to enjoy music, right? So going back to education rather than a problem, diversity is a bless. It's something we need to foster, something we need to motivate, okay? Because that is where richness would grow from, right? And there are certain principles that can make diversity manageable for us, meaningful and harmonious. Okay, so today I'm going to share with you some ideas related to assessment and how it can turn into a very powerful ally to foster learning. So, sorry. I have some allergy because of spring, so my throat gets really dry sometimes. Okay, so I would like to invite you to start thinking about assessment as a process and not as a test or a final or an international exam we might be taking. So it's a 5-step process, which we are going to be starting once again and again and again, every time we design an assessment. Okay, and we're going to explore each of these steps individually, okay? First, we would need to start defining the what of the assessment. Then to set a purpose, design how we're going to implement the assessment, assess the assessment, and that seems to be a wordplay, okay? But we need to make some evaluation, some judgment of the assessment we are doing, and then taking action, okay? Just to start again, defining a new what, a new set of purposes, a new design, and so on and so forth. So our first step in defining assessment would be the what, all right? What will I choose to assess? And this means, as you see there, there's a puzzle piece among many others, and that represents reality, okay? The realities we have in our classrooms. Different students, a lot of students, different contexts, different abilities, different content we are teaching, different objectives that our school or our institutions have, okay? And they all get together in a vast world of things to assess, okay? So there are certain things there we can measure. There are things we can perceive. There are things we can know about our students and things that are influencing them heavily, okay? But it's not possible to assess everything that goes on in my classroom, everything that I am teaching, okay? So necessarily, I will have to choose 1, 2, 3 different aspects that I want to assess, I've been working with for some time, and I want to know how they are doing, right? So the blue puzzle piece would be what I have chosen to assess in this precise moment. And it's purely a teaching design, okay? So you are totally free to decide what you want to assess, okay? The second step, after deciding the what, has to do with my purpose of assessment, because it doesn't happen that we assess just because there's nothing better to do or nothing more entertaining. So why am I assessing? What's my purpose? And I have decided to select these 3 purposes of assessment, which are quite clear and quite used, at least here in my country. First of all, we have the diagnostic assessment, okay, that I would apply at the beginning of a unit, or at the beginning of any of the term, okay, of a work unit I'm about to start, just to see where my students are regarding my learning objectives, okay? I know I want to develop certain skills and certain content, okay? And I would like to see how far my students without instruction have mastered those skills and that content, how far they are from my learning objectives or how near they are. Then we move on to, another thing I wanted to say about diagnostic tests, diagnostic assessment, is that it doesn't mean only a test, okay? But there are other things I can consider as a diagnostic, okay? Their interests, their, sports abilities, their personalities, the way they are used to study or relate to education in sometimes, situations with family, situations at school, okay? So I would grab a lot of information about my students that then I can use to tailor my course, to adapt my course to my students and their strengths and their weaknesses and their characteristics. That's one of the fundamental contributions of diagnostic testing. Then formative assessment. And formative assessment is a process in which we generate learning through assessment activities, okay? It usually doesn't carry a mark, okay? So I'm not penalizing the process that my students are doing while I work with formative assessment. They won't get a hard consequence on making mistakes at this stage, because I want to uncover their thinking. I want to see how they are working with the concepts, understanding the concepts, applying. Okay, so it's kind of a safe atmosphere for experimenting without, as I was saying, without any consequence. On the other hand, when I talk about summative assessment, I have tests, I have exams, I have finals, I have marks, I have decisions to be taken as, for example, if a student might take a course again, or if he or she might pass my course to the following. Okay, so it's kind of a social function we fulfill as educators, okay, to decide if students are ready and have achieved the knowledge or the abilities or the understanding they should in a certain level. Then, the third step. The third step is one of the most complex. And it has to do with how we are going to generate evidences of learning. Evidences of learning I would gather from those activities that I set in the class, okay? Remember the picture of the orchestra I showed you a minute ago? Here is where diversity finds its place and becomes relevant. And here it is where I need to generate harmony from chaos, apparent chaos, in fact. Okay, so which kind of activities will I set to my students so they can show me they have understood, they have grasped a content or an ability I have been working with? Okay, how deep is their learning? So how will I provide them with opportunities to show their understanding in different ways? How can I provide evidences of learning so that they can show me what they have learned in different ways? In different ways, because there are many ways of showing understanding. For example, if I'm working with arguments, with the creation of an argument in a topic, and I want them to show me that they can create an argument for a certain topic, okay, they might be writing an essay, an argumentative essay, or they can also create a presentation in which they show their arguments and support them, okay? Or they can lead an experiential activity in which they show their point, okay? And for me, it would be equally clear if they have developed the ability to support an argument, okay, to create an argument. So those are different ways of showing understanding. And I also need to guarantee different ways to accessing information, okay, different ways of accessing content. So those are kind of the two most important things to bear in mind when we generate activities that will provide us with information about our students' learning. Okay, because as I have decided what I'm going to teach, okay, which are my what and my purpose, okay, it's quite easy then to determine which kind of things a person can do if they have mastered certain topic or certain content or abilities, whatever it is that I'm working with at any level, okay? If I know what I was teaching clearly and why, then I can provide certain variety, okay? Because things can be shown in different ways. The fourth step of the process has to do with judging learning, and that's the assess the assessments that I am setting. Okay, so I've gathered a lot of evidence from different kinds of activities. I have plenty of activities made by students, evidences of their learning, and now what do I do with all that? Okay, so I will need to go back to my learning objectives and see and compare my students' production with my objectives, okay, and see, okay, well, this student is very far away from my objective, this one is very near, this one is in the middle. I think I might need to go back and revise and do some remedial work about this. This topic is absolutely clear, so I can move on to the following. This has been too easy for my class, so I can make it a little bit more difficult for the next round. Okay, so I need to start judging what's going on, interpreting that evidence I am getting from my students directly. Okay, should I provide them with extra training? Should I recommend someone to redo an activity or practice a little bit more? And then the last step of this process is deciding, taking action. So all that evidence I've been talking about before would allow me to make informed decisions. I will know exactly what my students are up to and where they are in their learning journey. Okay, so the decisions I take, the action I take based on that, okay, would be much more fair for them. Okay, much more understandable for everyone at school because it's a very clear process. And I have evidence to show, okay, to prove my point, to decide, okay, I'm taking this decision because I have this, and this piece of evidence that makes me think my student needs this or that, okay? So it's a very, very powerful tool, this thinking about assessment this way. Okay, so the most interesting part of this is that through assessment, through this process, I can allow diversity in my classroom. I can navigate students doing different things at the same time, okay? Using assessment as a lighthouse, okay? Using assessment as an anchor that would provide me the guide I need as an orchestra director, okay? So my learning activities, although they are different and may seem chaotic, they will for sure have a direction and an objective, and it will be clearly seen in everything I do. So I know here you have the diagram of the assessment process again. Okay, so to see that we have covered all the steps, and then I will start the same process again for another unit, for another term, for another working topic that I'm dealing with in my classroom. And it might be a little bit overwhelming, okay, thinking about providing students with different activities at the same time. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to share an example with you of an activity I did during lockdown in COVID years, okay, with one of my groups. And you're going to see the real students' answers, okay, which is quite interesting. And see that the resources that I have used were not that much, were not that many. So it's something like it's really doable, and probably we are doing it again and again every day in our classrooms, might be without realizing we are. Okay, so the project I'm sharing with you is one in which we worked with stories. Okay, as I said, it was during COVID lockdown, and the classes were delivered by Zoom, as we are doing it now. This project was made by 16-year-old students, okay, but it can be adapted in different ways for younger ages or older ages also. Their level of English is upper intermediate advanced, okay. And there you have my what, okay. I was working with extensive reading, so I wanted to achieve deep text comprehension. I wanted to make sure they read a story and they could take the story into pieces and put it back together and really, really understand not only the literal message, okay, the literal structure of the story, but everything that goes around, the context of the author, everything that makes the story what it is. Why? For formative purposes, okay? I wanted to generate learning. I want them to experiment deep reading, extensive reading, which is kind of a new activity for them. Okay, so there are no marks, no penalization, just activities to generate learning. And well, how? How did I do that? Trying to bear in mind diversity, trying to provide them with different ways of accessing information, and trying to provide them with different ways of showing what they have understood. Okay, and well, the materials we needed were the access to internet that everyone had, fortunately, here, their computer or cell phone, whatever they were working with in their homes. And then there is this app, Padlet, which I suppose you have seen. Okay, which is the one I selected to share with you. So let me open the link here so that I can show you. Well, it's not working. I'm going to do it the other way. Sorry, I'm going out of my presentation just a little bit so that I can show you the activities. Here we are. Okay, so this is my Padlet. It's a kind of wall where you hang things like a school board. And if you can see, the first thing we did was talking about technology. So there is an activity, a handout related to vocabulary about technology, which later they would see in the story. We have some information about the story. The story was There Will Come Soft Rains from Ray Bradbury. Okay, so there was a little video on his biography, very, very short video, kind of 3 minutes, something very appealing for teenagers, as it's a very active young person, the one who delivers the information about his biography. And then they were able either to read the text or to listen to it, or both. That was my recommendation, so that they read while they were listening. Okay, but I know that there were some of them who just read the text and some others who just listened to it. After reading and discussing, we read it kind of in chapters, okay? And these are some of the activities I selected for them to create with the different contents that I have been given them. For example, the first one was a cube creator. It's not available anymore, unfortunately, but it's a cube, okay, with certain questions about the story, key elements of the story, who are the characters, the setting, the conflict. Okay, and there was also a bio cube. If anybody was interested in Ray Bradbury's story, which is very related to the kind of stories he wrote about technology and science fiction. Then they had a typical worksheet with exercises based on the story, kind of reading comprehension exercises, fill in the blanks, the most typical EFL kind of exercise that we might have in books. Then there was another activity in which they were supposed to make some connections. And there were 3 different ways of connecting the text to themselves, to another text they have read, and to the world. Okay, something more open. So this was done kind of in 3 different layers, okay, of depth. And they were supposed to choose 1 or 2 questions for each, one from connecting the text to the self, one for connecting the text to the text, and another one for the text to the world, and write a paragraph, or about 50, 60, 100 words for each. Okay, remember that writing was not my main objective, but I wanted to gather evidence of deep comprehension. Okay, so if they were able to relate, to make such connections from the story to themselves, to another thing they have read, and to the world, well, that's a great indicator that they have understood deeply a text. Okay, the same with the other activities I have made. Usually the way in which we test comprehension would be using exercises, questions, multiple choice questions, fill in the blanks, okay? Or something more creative, like a cube, focusing on key points of the story. So again, if someone is able to understand the story, he will or she will be able to select which are the most important elements of that story. And then there was a writing also, and they have 3 different options to write about. There's an essay, okay, so because those were things we have been working with. There's a letter to a friend, and there's also an anecdote related to the topic of the story, okay, which is technology and how it has played a negative role, okay, in their lives. So as you can see, there is a great variety of activities they can do to show me they have understood. And here you start to see the kind of connections that they have made in this lilac chart. I don't know if you can read properly. Okay, but someone said, when I read the text, I feel afraid and uncertain. I don't know how far technology will go. In addition, the text generated many questions, such as, what will the future be like? Men should be 100% dependent on technology. Okay, which for a 16-year-old, totally based on technology, and during the COVID lockdown, in which we resorted a lot to all kinds of technology, was a real shock to start thinking about technology as something you might not like to use for everything in your life. Then, well, this continues. And the nice thing about this is that collaboration can be made live, okay, as we are doing in the chat here. Okay, they can start writing their impressions, and everyone can see them online at the time they are writing it. So it's very interesting for them. And then you can keep this, and you can either hide it or use it for another class. In fact, here you have the sky blue one belongs to one group, the yellow to another, okay, the lilac that we have been seeing to another group. And then you have a great source of information of how your different groups are doing and the kind of reflection or depth they are achieving with the activities that you are doing. So you have a kind of comparison, sorry, of what you're doing in your different groups. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and we'll return to the presentation. Give me just 1 minute. Here we go. Yeah. So again, my what was making them understand a text deeply, work with a text and comprehension, deep comprehension. I didn't want to mark them. So in the Padlet interventions that they made, you might have seen mistakes, okay? Grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes. It didn't matter. I just wanted to focus on comprehension, okay? It was very hard not to start penalizing grammar sometimes for some of them, but I resisted that urge, okay? Because I was heading towards deep comprehension, okay? As you have seen, there were many different ways in which students could access the information and many different ways in which they could show understanding, okay? So my class looked like the picture I showed you at the very beginning, the one, the chaotic classroom, okay, at the very beginning, but everybody knew what we were doing and what we were heading to. So it ended up looking more like an orchestra than a chaotic thing with no direction. And that because I thought it from the assessment perspective. So, well, thank you very much. I don't know if we are well in time, right? We still have some, yeah, okay.
Have another 20 minutes.
Oh, great. So maybe
Sorry
there's someone
to
in the audience.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. The 20 minutes includes your Q&A session. Thank you, Veronica.
All right, great. So maybe someone of the audience would like to share their experiences regarding assessment or have any questions, or we can talk about it deeply in one of the parts of the process. Maybe you're interested in going deeper into something like that.
First of all, thank you so much, Veronica, for your amazing presentation. Thank you for your dedication, and thank you for making the learning happen, even in ill health. I mean, we adore you so very much. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing us tips to enrolling assessment in everyday teaching and ways to design effective assessment tools. That was very, very informative. And we do have people tuning in all over the world for you, and was very engaged in your presentation. And we do have a question for you from Jyoti Gupta. She questions, do you have some questions for diagnostic test that can be used for cookie data for student profiling? By different ways, you mean the same assessment is differentiated for inclusive students?
Yes, you can provide students with, you can provide activities for students who need some other kind of support, because what you're aiming at something very particular, okay? You have chosen something to assess, something in particular, and then you can provide different means of arriving to that place. It's like if you have ever used Google Maps, okay, you know that app would lead you to the same place through different roads, okay? And you can choose them if you're walking, if you're going by train or by car or by bike, okay? And they would guide you through different paths to the same ending, right? So this is more or less how it works. You can provide a roadmap, okay, to students so that they can decide how to arrive to the destination. And during that trip they are making, that learning journey, that learning trip, you can provide students with special needs, okay? Either they would be low achievers or higher achievers, it doesn't matter. You can provide them with activities tailored for them and designed so that they can use them as a scaffold, you know, as a ladder to success, to have a successful learning experience. That's very important. So you can design that path. For some, it's going to be longer. sure. As we said at the very beginning with the sports analogy, okay? Some will need more training or different kinds of training. And maybe we don't all of us arrive to the same destination, but we will be much nearer, okay, if we start like walking and taking steps which are the right size, okay, according to our level of ability and knowledge at that time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you so much, Jyoti, for your question. And if you have any more questions, please, ladies and gentlemen, please unmute yourself and Veronica will answer them for you. And we do have another 15 minutes left for our next session. So please do unmute yourself.
Yeah.
And please have your questions ready for Veronica. Well, I was about to ask you one question, Veronica, but you just answered my question right now. So
okay.
Yeah.
I can share another activity based on stories, which might be interesting. I used this one this year. I'm going to share it screen for you. There we go. This is a menu, okay, like in a restaurant. You're seeing it clearly right now, right?
Yes, we can.
Yes, great. So this is a menu. I'm going to expand it a little bit, just so we can read it more carefully. Okay, it's a menu. So we have a starters section, a main course section, and a dessert section. And it's also based on a story. That's because the course I am teaching mainly has a lot to do with this, but you can design this kind of menu for any other kind of activity or subject. Okay, so this was based on Edgar Allan Poe, and we were working with a story called The Telltale Heart. And so as a starter, okay, to begin the unit, I asked them to find some information about the author and complete an author's sheet. In CREA is the Schoology platform we are still using, okay? We have kept in the Uruguayan system of education some technological apps and devices that we started using during COVID, and we thought they were great tools, okay? Or, as you know, Edgar Allan Poe has a very particular life and writing style. So for more creative people, they were supposed to draw a symbol, a shape, or an icon that best represents the author, and then fill that shape with words and phrases or photographs, okay, that support their decision, their design. Then for the main course, okay, those are the heaviest activities, and you might want them to do the same activity, everyone, okay? So here they could either read, listen, or read while listening to the story, okay, and prepare a diagram, a kind of mind map, analyzing the elements of short stories we have been working with, setting character, conflict, theme, kind of narrator, the plot, okay? And or they could read, listen, or read while listening the story and complete a quiz in this platform, okay? And create a kind of summary, writing a summary of the story. And then as a dessert, desserts are usually shorter activities to close up or to focus on a detail of the work you're doing. So I decided to ask them for 2 examples of techniques that this writer usually works with: foreshadowing, irony, okay? And then something more in a game fashion, they were supposed to prepare a Kahoot, which is another app in which you can prepare games with questions. So they were supposed to create one for their fellow students to answer, to revise what was going on in the story. So again, from this activity, you can get a lot of information from different kinds of activities, but all leading to the same objective.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica, for sharing, even when your throat is hurting. Thank you so much for that. And Cheryl Zaha writes, thank you for this wonderful session. And Usman Abdul Majid A writes, well presented. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any more questions, please register your questions in the chat box or unmute yourself. And oh, sorry, Jyoti, did you have any questions earlier? Jyoti, are you there? I think she might be having a connection.
Yeah, I wanted to know.
Jyoti, your voice is breaking. Jyoti, we are not able to hear you properly. I'm really sorry.
Maybe she can type the answer in the chat.
Maybe you can use the chat function. Thank you, Jyoti. We have Pragya Nopani asking, can you show some responses to this assessment?
To which one? To this of the menu?
I think she is yes, to the menu.
Yes, okay. Let me just, because I have some, but they are not processed yet. I don't have them in my computer, but I do have some in my cell phone. So if you give me just 1 sec, I can transfer them to the computer and show you some of the creations that they have achieved. Some of the symbols they have produced are amazing. Okay, so I do have some documentation of that. That's something very important. And thank you for asking this question, because many times we do really rich activities in the classroom, but we don't have documents of that. We don't have the evidence, the real evidence, okay, because it stays either in the student's notebook and we don't keep it to ourselves. And so we don't have then the opportunity to show that to other colleagues or to share with a wider community, okay, because we are not used to do that in a regular basis. So just let me see if I can find them in my cell phone to share them with you. Yes, here I have some. So I'm going to transfer them. I want to see how. Maybe I can, yes, I know what I will do. I'm going to stop sharing screen for a moment. We are fine in time, right? So I can.
Veronica, can I ask my question?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Jyoti. Oh, I think it dropped again. Jyoti, is it possible for you to share your question in the chat box? Thank you so much, Jyoti.
Yeah, so in the meantime.
Repeat of my previous question, how to use student's profile.
We are not able to hear your question clearly, Jyoti. We're really sorry. Is it possible for you to share your questions in the chat box? Okay, I think it's an internet connection. Veronica, you may continue, and you have 8 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll do it. I'm just connecting my cell phone to my computer.
Okay.
What's a pity she cannot answer, she cannot ask her question. I'm going to choose another way of doing this. I'm not finding them in the transfer I have made from my computer from my cell phone to my computer.
Is it possible for you to show us through your phone, Veronica?
Probably, yes. Let me see if we can, because they are very, very interesting creations. So yeah, it would be a pity if I cannot. Okay, yeah, I think I'm here and I'm fine. Can you see it there?
We cannot really see because the background is very blur. So it is kind not making it. It's very difficult. It's making it difficult for us to see the image because the background is blur.
Okay. So can I unblur from inside from the?
Yes, you may just go to your video setting,
Yeah.
and go to backgrounds and effects, and
Yeah.
and you go to virtual backgrounds and you click none. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if I hear.
Okay,
Yes,
okay. Yes, Jyoti with her question in the meantime.
Great.
How can we use the diagnostic questions for collecting students' profiling?
I don't understand. I don't quite understand the question.
How can we use the diagnostic questions for collecting students' profiling?
It depends on what you want to use as a diagnostic. Okay, what you want to. Excuse me. Yeah, here we are. What you want to diagnose. Okay. The important thing there, I think it's
Jyoti, sorry, Veronica, I'm sorry to remind you, but you have 5 minutes. Please
okay, 5 minutes. Good. It's what you do with information you get, the important thing, okay, as how to profile your students, okay? So you have an objective, you want to diagnose certain kind of thing, okay? And then you need to find out which would be the best way for classifying those activities that you are receiving from your student, those answers, okay? And that would help you design a kind of mapping the situation in your classroom. And from there, you need to start thinking about profiling them, okay? And gathering personal information about each. And how you store that will depend on the resources you have. It might be a digital way, or you might have some portfolio or folders in the classroom where you keep their production, okay, the students' activities, answers, and then you have that information for you available all the time. So let's see. It's kind of blurry anyway. This is a kind of a black background and the design of a bird, which is probably a raven, and because it's Edgar Allan Poe, and there are certain text there around the bird, and we have things like The Telltale Heart, American Creepy, Tragedy, and data about his personal life, which was quite a tragedy also. This is another one, another piece of artwork. Okay, I think you can see it better.
Yes, we can see. Thank you, Veronica.
Yeah, so these are some of the things they have created. This is another one. Okay, it's a bleeding heart there because of all his life situations and the kind of story he writes. The black cat there, and then some interesting facts about his story, and also the use of color here, like red and black, are also very meaningful symbols for Edgar Allan Poe. Here this student, this work is by a student who has learning disabilities. Okay, but anyway, I think he has grasped the spirit of the kind of stories we were reading. Okay, there's a raven, there's a dark forest, and he has chosen the words terror and tragedy to symbolize Edgar Allan Poe. So I think there is some understanding of what we are doing, although it's a student who needs a lot of support, not only in language learning, but learning in general. Okay, so it's something that we can share with different kinds of students also.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation, Veronica. Thank you so much for answering questions. I know your throat is hurting. Get well soon. You have prayers from all around, people from all around the world, and they love your dedication. Thank you for sharing your presentation. And everybody, will be showcasing our presentation on our platform, educationinfluence.com, very, very soon. Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you for participating.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Conference. Thank you.